Good day, Doc Baguio and classmates. So this is my report in English 103, Seminar in Teaching English as a Second Language. I hope you will learn something from my topic today. So let me ask you this question. How teachers can help English language learners? Well, there are many advantages of English learning. However, there are only a handful of ways of teaching it that are truly effective. After all, many second language speakers need special teaching to help them pick up the language, since language is something that should be taught or even adopted and learned. So that is why second language teachers, including both official teachers as well as people who have agreed to help their friends, need to use certain techniques and principles to ensure that their students have an easy time learning. So this afternoon, I am going to discuss to you the principles of teaching English as a second language. So, I have 4 principles that we can consider in teaching the English language. Since English language in the Philippines is the second language, it is very applicable or even useful for every Filipinos to use this kind of language. Even in work or going to other countries, then this language, the English language, which is the universal language, can be very helpful in using in everyday life. Okay, so let us start with the principle number 1. Support and understand your students' learning style. Students come from different cultures and educational backgrounds and have different personalities and learning methods. Each student is different from each other. When teaching English as a second language, it's very important that teachers know their students, in particular that they need to know things like, number 1, their current skill level. It is very important to know the skills of our students. Number 2, how they learn. So every students have their metacognition, in where they can think of something so that they can understand or learn something in their own strategy. 3, their strengths and weaknesses. We need to assess their strengths and weaknesses in order for us to target the language that we want them to learn, particularly the English language. And what challenges them. So we need also to ask ourselves what challenges these students. Do they have a hard time in learning English because of grammar or spelling or punctuations, or even in speaking, listening, hearing, and writing? Okay, all of this is important for preparing materials, lesson plans, activities, and projects that will cater to a wide range of learning methods. Okay, let us now proceed to principle number 2. Immerse students in English-speaking environment. It is very important for us teachers to also connect our learners to the real world so that they can apply all of the things that they have learned in the 4 corners of the classroom. So the best way to help them is to pick up English by creating an English-speaking environment. That is why in some schools, they really implemented the English-only policy. This can make a big difference in helping your students improve their listening and speaking skills, since they are not limited to use the language wherever they go, or even in the area where they are learning. And doing so helps encourage them to think in English and practice their skills. and gives them a more realistic experience with the language compared to other methods. Okay, as flashed on the screen, immersing your students in an English-speaking environment helps expose them to different English expressions, words, sentences, accents, and ideas that will help them quickly become familiar with how English is used in the real world. So there are a lot of benefits in doing this English immersion. So done right, it can be a win-win for both of you and your students if first passively learning the language, 2 gaining a real life opportunity to practice, 3 applying and trying what they've learned, and 4 a natural way of learning and learning. Okay, so of course it's important to make sure you remember the first principle. Not all students have a strong enough foundational skills to make this type of learning possible. However, we teachers can create an environment for them so that they can learn naturally. They are not forced to learn. They are not coerced to learn, but they have this natural application of learning the language in the real world. Okay, so let us now proceed to principle number 3. Make sure they know the rules. Okay, strengthening your students' English language skills starts by practicing. However, it's also important that they know the rules as well. In English, there are a lot of rules that we need to remember, especially in the grammar. So, we know already what are those, such as in the grammar we have the SVA, or the subject-verb agreement, also the proper usage of the punctuation marks, and also the contextualized speaking or communication. So a lot of students who try learning on their own only focus on improving their vocabulary and pronunciation. But these are important. Both of these are important. However, the words themselves are only part of being understood. So it is very important in communication for us to understand so that the message from the sender would be received by the receiver and would understand what he or she is trying to imply or trying to say. Okay, so understanding is also an important part of communication. So good grammar and sentence structure are just as important, which is why you should focus on giving your students a strong understanding of grammar and other principles. Okay, so there are a lot of things that governs the English language, but it is very important for the students to learn the rules since they are using the language in communication. Okay, so there are a lot of things also to consider so that the things that they are learning from the English language can be very useful in their everyday lives. Okay, so now we are on our last principle, which is principle number 4. Monitor and assess student language development. So a good teacher doesn't just teach. They also look at how their students are performing. So in every subjects that we have, not just in the English subject, we assess the students if they have learned or applied the lesson that we have for them. So you should not just teach them, but you want them to perform. You want them to do it. Okay? So language growth and improvement in students should be assessed and monitored consistently to track the progress and figure out where they might be struggling. So that can mean sitting down with them and asking. So please remember this important questions that we should develop. What they find difficult. So you need to assess them by knowing their difficulties, their weaknesses. 2, how confident they feel. So you will see it by letting them speak or letting them talk to their co-students. Okay, testing their skills. Okay, so there are a lot of things that we can use for testing their skills. Like you want them to answer a test or a written test, a written output, an essay, an oral participation, or even a lot of things that can be considered. Okay, so that would help you to assess if they have really achieved the in learning the language. Fourth, asking them if your teaching style is working. So it is also important for you to ask them about their assessment to you, if they have learned something from you, or do you need to change your strategies so that they can understand it or they would apply it just like that. So ask them. Okay, and fifth, giving constructive feedback to improve their proficiency. So feedbacking is very important since those students are learning and they are in the time of processing the things that they have learned. For their improvement, you need to give feedbacks. Okay, you need to provide solution to certain problems or difficulties that they had. Okay, so that would be all for my topic. I hope that you have learned something from my lesson, Principles of Teaching English as a Second Language. Remember, language is very important because that would help us in communicating, and by communicating, you can impact something in the world. So I am Evan Riddick Bolo, your reporter for today. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Doc Baguio and classmates, for listening. God bless everyone.